Now, do you see, I know headroom, but like, is it enough, or do you want me to try to do like this a little bit?
Whatever is good for you.
That's good.
All right. So, hi everyone, and welcome to Unpacking Possibility. I'm Tracy Stein, and I am so excited to have my good friend and man who is pretty much excellent at everything he does, Mitch Messinger. We've known each other for a long time, and by the end of our conversation today, you're going to feel like you know him as well. I'm going to read a little tiny snippet from Mitch's bio, but he's going to give you the whole story. So Mitch is the show publicist for the 93rd Academy Awards. He has been a publicity director for ABC Entertainment, part of Walt Disney Television. He was there from October 2003 to February 2021. And he's overseen a number of national publicity campaigns for all kinds of shows that you've absolutely heard of, including the Goldbergs, Dancing with the Stars, the ESPYs, Schooled, Supermarket Sweep. He's won first place for the Faxies Award in the press kit category for his work on the Goldbergs, Schooled, and American Housewife. And he was also early on a star as Otto the Orange at Syracuse University, where we met. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome you, Mitch. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Someone I've known a long time. This is a real thrill for me, and hopefully your listeners will enjoy our conversation. I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will. So I'm not even sure really where to start, but I know that before we spoke today, we talked about things like aha moments and just kind of when you know that you are supposed to be on a certain path, when you know that somebody's supposed to be a part of your path. I'm wondering if you could start when you first knew that you wanted to be in entertainment in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of aha moments in my almost 51 years on this planet. We won't say that it's my birthday in a couple of days, but that's a whole nother story. But seriously, I think my first aha moment was when I was a young kid in first grade. I was 7 years old. I grew up in the New York City metropolitan area. I lived in the city till I was about 5.5, 6, and then we moved to the New Jersey shore. But New York City was still very much a part of my life, given that my dad worked in the city, my grandparents lived in the city. So that was definitely a big part of my upbringing. And so we were fortunate to see a lot of Broadway shows. And so I remember the first Broadway show I saw with my grandparents, my dad's parents who lived in the city. And we went to see the first revival of The King and I with Yul Brynner, who originated the role as the King. So this was about probably 20 years after he originated that role. He came back to play the King with a woman who coincidentally I would work with in my professional career years later, Constance Towers. But
Wow.
got to see that show at then was known as the Uris Theater, now the Gershwin Theater where Wicked plays. And saw that show. And I remember like it was yesterday saying, I want to do that. And not that I wanted to be an actor, even though I did dabble in acting throughout my career or my life. It was just the knowing that this is an industry that, brings me joy and makes me happy and makes me, know that I can maybe help other people in a way that, is a little different than, just a quick talk with a friend or a relative. This was, entertaining somebody with an audience and with a beautiful stage with actors and an orchestra and everything else. And so that was probably my first aha moment that I can think of, given hold on one second. Yes, Jillian.
Hi, Jillian.
Hi.
One of my friends. Yes. What do you need something?
I was just saying hi to you.
I'm on the call.
I wasn't planning on you interrupting your call.
Right. Okay, but you're like looking at me like, yes.
No, I was just saying hi.
Okay. Okay.
Sue me.
Teenagers, what can I tell you? You can cut that out.
No, it's totally fine, because you know what? I feel like I know her anyway from your pics of your family, and
Yes.
It's great. And while you were actually talking to Jillian, my husband tried to call me twice, so I'm assuming it's not.
Well, take the call. Or do you think he's
No.
Okay, come on, Jay, we have a call. Let's do this.
But this is real life. And I think that's,
absolutely,
especially with
absolutely.
everybody working at home now.
Right. I mean, school, work, and everything in between. It's always something going on, whether you like it or not. So
I don't want to interrupt you. You were talking about your aha moment, and I don't want to fast forward to the Oscars, but that's such a huge thing. And you literally just, wrapped up the actual official Oscars, night. And now, tying up all the stuff that most of us don't know about, all the behind the scenes stuff.
right.
But what a journey. And what, like, just trying to put something like that on and promote it during a global public health crisis. And actually, I think it was pretty amazing, given how much had to be different.
Yes. I mean, it was my first year with the Academy, so I'm only going from what I saw as probably John Q. Public, meaning someone, like a fan like everybody else, even though I did work at ABC for years, and ABC was always, or is, the home of the Oscars broadcast. And so I kind of saw it from afar, but a little bit probably closer than normal people. But this year was definitely an interesting year, and definitely different from anything that we had ever experienced, I think, in the history of the Motion Picture Academy, given, we had a pandemic to deal with, a lot of rules that were put in place. And that's why we, went to a new location. We were at Union Station. We only had nominees and plus one guest. We didn't have the whole, membership in the audience. It was literally a very much, an intimate wedding, as I kept telling people on the red carpet last weekend, because it was different, and we had to abide by those rules, whether, they were the rules by the Academy, but more importantly by, LA County Health Department, state guidelines, national guidelines. And yes, things have definitely gotten better, but there were still a lot of things that they could not do like what they normally do. And so we had to abide by those rules. And I think they did do a great job. Would they, could we have done things better? Of course. But, the Oscars are like the president of the United States. Everyone has an opinion of what we could have done, not focus on the positive. And I think in this case, we did a pretty damn good job, all things considered.
I totally agree. And I think it's funny because I had another podcast interview yesterday. I don't know if you're familiar with Leslie McGurk. She's not a household name, but she's actually a prolific author and successful artist. But we were talking about how there's such a climate of people really, almost, I'm going to say, like, discharging energy by being hyper picky and critical from their armchair. And so I'm with you on that. I kind of feel like one of the things that I most, out of the many, many things that I most enjoy and like and respect about you, and I think that other people do too, is that you are a person who has a really solid center. You are a solid kind of compass, and you are a person who has remained a nice person, like a genuinely really good person, despite incredible stress, right? And a million opinions, not only like in your physical workspace, but, everybody on Twitter, needing to say something.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about how you do that.
It just comes naturally to me. I wish I had a magic word or a phrase to say it's this, but it's just who I am. It's how I've been put together. I've been like this a long time. I think it wasn't recognized as much or appreciated when I was younger. I think it's only as I became an adult and now a middle-aged adult, despite me. I can't believe I just said that.
Don't give it away.
Yeah, exactly. But I think people appreciate, like, yes, that's always been who I am. And that has gotten me through the good times and the bad times, whether it's professionally, personally, or a combination of the two. That's just because life is too short, as we all know. It's cliche, but it's very true. And given what I've been through on the personal side, to see someone, not be able to live a full life as they should have, it's just, I want to be able to appreciate what I have, and hopefully that I do have another 50 plus years in my life to be doing what I love to do, whether it's with my family, whether it's my job, or again, a combination of the two.
So let's jump into that then, because you and I spoke briefly about this, but Like I said, and this is totally true, if I had seen your bio and didn't know you, I would have been intimidated to reach out to you. And in fact, I was so grateful you said, "Hey, you're doing a podcast. Great." You were always the number one nice, helpful, genuine person. But people could look on the outside if they don't know you well and just look at your bio and look at your career and all these incredible things you've done. This trajectory from being the 7-year-old kid who sees The King and I with Yul Brynner and is like, I'm going to be connected to this world. And you've done it so successfully. People might not realize that your life hasn't been one seamless, easy going, problem, challenge free journey. And in fact, you've had some really difficult personal years. With Michelle, your wife, being diagnosed with cancer and going through that with her when you have had a young child. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. I know we wanted to talk about aha moments, and I know that you've had a number of them, not only professionally, but personally.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin. Yeah, I mean, all the above, yes. Yes, I had, some very stressful years when my first wife, Michelle, who I had met when I first moved to LA in 1993. We've been together for a very long time. We were married in 1997, had our daughter Jillian in 2003. And unfortunately, soon after her birth in 2005, she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And at the time it was stage 1. We thought that, we would nip it in the bud really quickly. It was stage 1. She'd do a mastectomy, she'd do chemo, and we'd be on our way, even though obviously it was easier for me to say that given I wasn't going through it, physically, but mentally I was. And so, we thought we got it done. And then unfortunately, 2 years later, they're like, well, we still see some cancer in you and we're going to have to do this now and that for you. And again, we lived a pretty stress-free life. I guess maybe that's a little too strong of a word, but we weren't so focused on the cancer once it had returned, and we still had to do more treatments and more surgeries and stuff like that. But Michelle was a strong woman, and we both lived our life to the fullest, even with that diagnosis and not sure where it would take us. I still am the optimist. She was always the pessimist and felt like this was never going to end well, even though I'd say you're crazy. And again, for the next 6-7 years, despite living with it, it was manageable. And her oncologist would always tell me and her that, you're going to just, live with this the rest of your life, but it's not going to be any different than like living with diabetes or, a chronic illness that you take medicine for. And I said, yeah, I'm sure, you'll die of a heart attack at 90. Not that I want you to die of a heart attack, but that you're going to live a long life. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And so for the last 9 months of her life, that's when it did get really bad. And that's when, our life was truly turned upside down because of her illness and where it had, spread, and just who she became. And, she wasn't able to work anymore or be a full-time mom to Jillian, and despite doing the best she could. And in those last few months, it was, I don't wish that on my worst enemy, basically. And then, after her passing, kind of realizing, what am I going to do now? And, thankfully I have a great support system. I have a great, group of family members, including my parents, my in-laws, aunts and uncles, cousins, everybody. And then again, my family, which are really friends, but our other part of the family, which is our friends here, that were all very supportive of me and Jillian, especially those first, few months, and definitely that first year without her being here physically with us. It just, we were able to just live our lives, and, Michelle would kick my ass if I didn't do what I was supposed to do now as I guess you would say a single dad, not by choice, because
right.
I don't care about labels, but, after taking off my wedding band back then and, going out to dinner with Jillian, I kept thinking everyone's looking at me like, oh, it's his weekend. And it's like, no, it's not just my weekend, but it's every day because you don't know my story, because everyone automatically assumes when they see, a guy with a young child, whether it's a girl or a boy, doesn't matter, thinking, oh, divorced. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, it didn't work out for you. But that wasn't the case for me. So I almost wanted to wear a t-shirt saying, again, single dad, not by choice, just to make sure that everyone knew, my story without, judging, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I mean, what an incredibly, like there's no words that I have to adequately capture something like that. And as we talked about, like I worked with a lot of people who either themselves had serious medical illness or had a family member with serious medical illness, and sometimes both. And it is the hardest journey. And I agree with you. You would not wish it on anyone. And yet, this is not, again, no one would wish for this. But I wonder about the strength that you found, probably maybe even a reserve you didn't even realize was there. And you're a pretty strong guy.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering when you realized I'm going to be okay. And I'm actually ready to start maybe thinking about opening my heart to love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Again, it guess just came naturally to me. I can't even put words into what I was thinking. I have a job to do as a dad to Jillian. I have a job to do to work at the time at ABC. I have to, be present with my family, my parents, again, my in-laws, making sure that things don't change just because Michelle is physically not here anymore. I still have to do what I got to do without her guidance. Maybe in my heart, I could hear her say, do this, but in reality, it was really, just me that's, making those decisions. And so again, I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. I had a very great support system behind me to make sure that, that we were looked after and everyone took care of us. But then, again, another aha moment to go back to that. I remember going to a talk show, Home and Family on Hallmark, and I had one of my actors of one of my shows as one of the guests. That's kind of what I do as a publicist. And one of the other guests that day happened to be, and I didn't know this until I actually got to the show, was a woman, a therapist, talking about love after loss. And I thought, that's interesting. And that, as we say in Yiddish, beschert, was it meant to be? I don't know, but that's really bizarre. And no one told, the booker of the show knew my story, but she didn't say anything to me. Maybe, I still don't know. Maybe she did it purposely, but she was a guest. And so someone said to the woman, the therapist, Mitch just lost his wife. And she and I started talking, behind the scenes before the segment and after the segment. And I remember her saying to me, Mitch, don't let anyone decide when you're ready. When you are ready to date again, you can, you can do it. And no one should put a timetable on it. Everyone's different. There's no one size fits all. And I said, absolutely, even though some people had said things that I thought were head scratchers, but that's a whole nother story for another time. But mostly people were supportive of just, letting me go on my journey as I was going to go on it, moving forward after her passing. But it was an aha moment because then I turned it actually on the flip side to say, hey, you know what? Michelle's not coming back. So what am I waiting for? And thankfully, and I'll tell you and, the people watching this too, thankfully, and I do recommend this to everybody and without me getting emotional, Michelle and I had the talk that I think every spouse should have with their spouse, or, husband should have with their wife, wife with their husband, husband with their husband, wife with their wife, whatever, that find love again. I'm okay with that. Move, live your life. I will not be here, but find love again. And I had that very serious, very dramatic conversation with Michelle in the kitchen of our house. I have a very good memory about a lot of things. And that's one thing I also don't forget. And that helped me because she gave me her blessing to say, hey, I can't physically be here. I wish I could be here with you and Jillian, but I know I'm not going to be. So find love again. And so that was, again, another thing that made me think, aha, yes, she's given, because again, it's not by choice. And so let's make it happen. And so fast forward after she passed, and again, going to this show Home and Family, which coincidentally ends its run this week on Hallmark. And that's also why we're talking about it. They said, let you decide your path. And I said, I think I'm ready because again, I know where she is. It's not like she's, somewhere back east and I'm hoping she'll come home. No, she's where she'll be for eternity, where I will be at some day in 100 years. So it is what it is. And so that's when I made the decision to say, I'm going to start dating. And so I remember telling all the moms of Jillian's school that we were, Michelle was friends with, and you thought, all the yentas of the school were excited. That's an understatement, basically. They were so happy and saying, yes, we'll see what we can do to help find you, another Michelle. Someone's different than Michelle, but, another beloved for you. And that's luckily what happened. Not with those women, but I did have, was introduced by another mutual friend that Michelle knew really well, who introduced me to my new wife, who we've been married 2 years now. So I'm very thankful for that.
It's just incredible. I read your wedding announcement in the Times, and I you could see I'm a little teary now, and I don't want you to,
verklempt, as we say.
Yes, and I was so moved, and I was so happy for you. But I love that, there are people who feel like it's not okay to open their hearts to love again, and we are not here to not love. Like I'm getting all emotional, but it's true. And again, I don't want to, go where it's just too emotional for you, but I can imagine, what you're saying about Michelle, from everything that I'd read about, I never met her, but things you had posted about her, and, and you're such a good person. I knew you could only be with somebody who is just as wonderful, truly. And
yeah,
if you love somebody, you want them to love and be loved. And but that blessing is, you're absolutely right, is so important. And I agree with what the therapist said.
Yeah. I mean,
you got to do it your way.
Exactly. Absolutely. And again, I'm now part of a fraternity out here in LA. Not truly. I was a fraternity in Syracuse, but a small group of guy friends who lost their wives of cancer in the last, 5 to 10 years. Not 100 people, but 3-4 people. And everyone's done their own thing. We've all found love again. I'm the only one who's gotten remarried. Other ones are close, but not there just yet. And so everyone does their own thing, just like cancer therapies, it's not all one size fits all. Life
Right.
is not one size fits all. I think we think all the time that it has to be, or it should be. It's not. Everyone is built differently. Just like you might like green beans, but I think they're nasty. You might like, I might like ice cream, but you think it's, again, everyone has different tastes, and, and you have to appreciate that. You might disagree, but at least be respectful about that, versus being, going off the deep end or being so dramatic about it, because that's not going to help you either moving forward.
No. And you know what, something else, that we haven't talked about, but, when you model that you are comfortable with who you are and the decisions you make, right? And you have that, where you honor and respect your own, you need to do things in the way that resonates with you, right? And you give yourself space to do it. And that you model that flexibility, right? Understanding that you have to do it your way, somebody else is going to do it their way, and that one can both hold feelings of loss and feelings of love and wanting to embrace life. When you model that, you give your child a gift that is priceless.
Yeah. And I think I have, with Jillian, I know she's my kid, so I will defend her till the cows come home, but she's an amazing kid. And everyone say it's because, first of all, the foundation that you and Michelle led her for the first 10 years of her life, being a great mom, being a great dad, that was great. But then past her passing, you were there for her and did everything you could to make sure that she still had a great life. Her 5th grade teacher told me during a parent teacher conference, she is living life to the fullest. She is not letting Michelle's passing define who she is. And this is when she was 11 years old, let alone now she's almost 18. And she's still, she's thriving. She's a great student. She's an athlete. She, is, a comedian. And we're looking at colleges now. And so,
Unbelievable.
her future is very bright. And I know, it's easier said than done that, it didn't really matter what you did to make her who she is. But I think, again, how I held myself and how I was able to, be a parent despite, not, being a single parent, and seeing, we were there when she, had her last breath, and that could have defined her, but it didn't. And so that I'm very thankful for, because, that's not always the story. A lot of times it's not the story that, kids have after losing a parent, whether it's tragically like, cancer or a car accident or whatever else. So, here we are, and I live to tell the tale.
And I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised at all. Again, your flexibility and your resilience and your optimism. I mean, as a psychologist, I think, okay, all these are really adaptive traits, and they help us to be adaptive in love and as parents and in our work and just emotionally. And it doesn't come equally easy to everybody, but I do think that some of what you're talking about, or a lot of what you're talking about, are things people can have in mind and make steps towards. Like, say, I can allow myself to have my feelings, and I'm also going to allow myself to be the person I need myself to be, and be the person that my child needs me to be, and draw upon the support that is available to me.
Right.
I love that you're still close
I've
with
always
your
said,
in-laws.
yeah, I'll say that again about my in-laws.
I love that your in-laws have remained just as much a part of your family as ever.
I spoke to them yesterday and again this morning, because we're coming back east this summer. So we had to figure out some plans. But yeah, absolutely. And what was great too, like the Hollywood movie never played, was always playing in my mind that, Jillian would, hate me because she would say, you never told me mom was going to die, or I hate my stepmother, or I hate, my new siblings, just get me out of here. Like, it's not fair. She was never like that, and again, I think that's who she is. She's definitely she has me in her. She has her mom in her too, but she has me in her. But again, how I dealt with it, I didn't let all that paralyze me. That's what I was trying to say earlier, that, I think people are too, get paralyzed by these unfortunate bumps in the road that we all have. Like, no one comes out of this life without, bumps in the road. And so if you don't let it paralyze you, then I think you'll be a lot better off. And so I'm thankful for that, because I couldn't be paralyzed. Again, I still have hopefully a good another 50, 60 years left in me. And I want to make sure that I have a great life, and that I can enjoy what we do have in this very short period of time that we're here on earth, that sort of thing. It sounds very cliche, but it's so true.
True.
And after, what, I've been through, but a lot of other people have been through, and maybe don't even realize.
And you have a beautiful wife. You have 2 beautiful new stepchildren.
Yeah, we don't call, actually, that was another thing I was going to say for you, and we don't call anybody step in this family.
Okay, I didn't know.
We're bonus members. So
I love
bonus
it.
grandparents, bonus mother, but that's a little, can be argued a little bit, because again, Deb has been great and said, no one can replace your mom. So whatever you want to call me, but, I'm like, and likewise, my bonus children, I don't call them my stepchildren, call me dad. So it's, what you feel comfortable saying, but yeah, everyone's a bonus. And going back to about my in-laws, all 4 sets of grandparents were at our wedding 2 years ago. My parents, Deb's parents, my first in-laws, Michelle's parents, and Deb's first in-laws as well. And so they were all there. And that, I think, also speaks volumes that, what we were able to create from our merger. It sounds so clinical, but our merger of our family, it wasn't just 2 families, it was really 4 families.
I love it. I'm actually, I'm obviously not connected to the world of entertainment. I'm not even like up on like normal TV shows. I don't know what I'm doing with my time. I got to kind of plug back in, but I imagine the movie of your life would be a pretty incredible one.
I think so. And there's been talk that someone said to me, I should write a script and write a movie of my life, but maybe that's for another time, another place. But yes, I mean, again, it's been quite a ride since, again, that first aha moment of 1977, thinking that someday, that maybe I could make this as a career, and to move out here from the East Coast. That was another aha moment, to go back to what we were talking about in the very beginning. Syracuse, afforded me the opportunity to come out here on a class trip. I really thought I would stay on the East Coast. Again, I was from New York City and New Jersey, and I came out here during a winter break, during school, through school. That was 12 students, meeting a lot of our alumni in the entertainment industry, some big people, but a lot of people that are, in the industry, but maybe are not named people. And I was like, why would I want to stay on the East Coast? I'm moving to California. And I remember, again, talking about our age, I remember calling on a payphone at the hotel we were staying at in Santa Monica to tell my parents, I've only been here a day, but I know I'm going to move to California. And my parents like, okay, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. And so when I graduated, 3 weeks later, I was on a one-way trip on an airplane from JFK to LAX and never looked back. 28 years later.
Unbelievable. And, I'm thinking too, like, I imagine that kid. So, that you may not know, I don't know, but I have my new agey streak. And I do believe that people have intuitive hits. Like they have moments where they just know something, even though the data isn't there yet. And I wonder for you, would you categorize some of your aha moments? Would you say that it felt like a gut feeling or a strong knowing? Or does aha moment just feel better?
It feels good. Like, this is a good thing. Even going to Syracuse, I remember that was an aha moment too. That was like one of the last schools I looked at on my college tour that winter in December of 87. And I was with my dad. My mom by then was like, you can take, said to my dad, you can take Mitch up to the last couple of colleges, and Syracuse was one of them. And I remember walking out of the Tolly administration building where the admissions office was at the time, and like walking in the back to the car. And I just said to my dad, I know I'm coming here. I just knew it. It just was something that just came over me. I felt comfortable. I felt good. I don't want to equate it like when you have a drink or, I don't know, you do other things that's how you feel. But it was kind of just a moment that it was like, this feels good and this feels right and comfortable, and I'm going to pursue it. And that's, I think, what, it's once to have an aha moment, but then you have to kind of go forth and do it basically too.
Absolutely. It's so interesting though, because whether you call it a gut feeling or something intuitive or that aha moment, just trusting that knowing though, I think the people who recognize that and trust themselves are people who are that much more successful in whatever they do, because they're really listening to their antenna are kind of always out. And you kind of know, like, either this doesn't feel right or these things are fine, but they don't really draw you in. And you honor it when you know it.
Yeah. And maybe people need to do that more often, or when they have that intuition that this is right, then do it. Don't stop, just do it. Because then, again, we have enough drama in our lives personally, in the world, given what, we've all been through this past year, that, find the positive in negatives. And that's also been my mantra always, even if someone I don't even like, I would never want to see them on the face of the earth again. Somehow I still try to find the pot, like, oh, but they do this. This is really good. That sort of thing, which maybe is to a fault, and maybe I shouldn't do that, but I do.
I think it's just you honoring, again, who you are. And I think it's one of your many strengths. And I can totally understand why, in addition to your obvious, skill and knowledge and, your intelligence and all of that, that's super important. But I imagine people just, again, when they're around you, they feel it. They feel like, you're a good soul. You really are.
I mean, that's what I've been told. I want to, be modest. Yes, exactly. Go like this, go like this, go like this. That's who I've always been, even as a young kid. But again, until I became an adult, I feel like I was more appreciated because of that. Not, as a kid, it was just like, who's this kid who thinks, they know this or they know that? No, I was trying to maybe make the world a better place even at 8 years old. But until I was more like 22, 23, then people were like, oh yeah, Mitch is right. Like, this is the way it should be. This is the way, you should live your life if you can.
I think it's one of the many ingredients to your, really incredible success. And I'm not surprised at all. Really, truly. And I'm not being gratuitous. It's just, Really true. I was so happy when you said, oh, hey, I've had some aha moments. I'm happy to talk to you.
Of course. And for you, again, we go way back, longer than I'd like to admit.
Everybody's going to be like, they can't be that old.
No, of course not, because we were probably babies when we went to Syracuse.
Yes, must be. It's so funny. Life goes by fast. It's important to make it count, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It goes faster and faster now.
It does. Any parting advice? You've already had so much, so if nothing comes to mind, that's okay. But any kind of words that you think that people should really keep in mind that would help people just kind of live a better life starting today?
Just, I don't know, just again, find those positives. Everyone has some positives, maybe again, some more than others, but try to latch on that. And again, if you have an aha moment, it could be as, oh, I left, I don't know, the water on in the sink, and you turn it off to say, aha, I need to shut that off, or I'm going to get a really large water bill, and try to take pleasure that you found it before it became, a nuisance, basically. So, take those aha moments, because again, I believe everyone has an aha moment. It's just a matter of how you digest it and how you go forth with that aha moment. I think that's what is really important for people.
Well, really sage advice. Mitch, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me and our listeners today. And everyone, this has been Unpacking Possibility. If you like it, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, be well.